Welcome to Falmouth Arts Center's Zoom talk featuring the judges from our current show, Witnessing Climate Change. I'm Laura Reckford, Executive Director of the Falmouth Arts Center. Some Zoom housekeeping tips. Please keep yourself on mute. Questions can go in the chat, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. Today's program is an interview with the two judges of our current show at Falmouth Arts Center, Witnessing Climate Change. The judges of the show were Jen Kano, a professional photographer and member of the Upper Cape Camera Club, and Anya Zolkos, a climate researcher at Woodwell Climate Research Center. They both have very interesting backgrounds, and so we'll talk about that and also about their thoughts on the show, and even from some tips from Jen about submitting to photo shows. First, some notes on the show. The idea for the show came to us from Bob Gould, a retired scientist who is here with us today. Bob also purchased books on the theme of climate change for all the first, second, and third place award winners, so we thank him for that. Special thanks for hours of work goes to Walter Knox, head of the Upper Cape Camera Club, who printed out all the photos, matted them, and framed them. And thank you, of course, to Jen and Anya, who spent a considerable time judging the photos. And thank you to Janine Lavoie and Frank Fernino, also from the Upper Cape Camera Club, who brilliantly hung the show. The labels, signage, and flyers were designed by our staffer, Ashley Heaton. Special thanks to the Falmouth Cultural Council, which awarded us a grant to help pay for the frames. A quick word about Falmouth Arts Center. We offer classes and exhibition opportunities year-round. We are open every day year-round. With our 3 galleries that change every month, we host 36 galleries a year. Anyone can submit to our open exhibits in our Herman Gallery. Right now, we are accepting entries to our annual juried photo show. It is very competitive, but last year a teenager did get a piece in the show, so we encourage anyone to enter. If you need help entering the show or have questions, just give us a call. Also, for the teens in the audience to know about, we have scholarship funds available for all ages, but we have 2 special new scholarship funds for teens. One is a fund that gives discounts to any Falmouth teenager taking any class at Falmouth Arts Center. Contact me for details on that. And the second is a college scholarship fund, and local students looking to study the arts can apply for that as well. You'll find information on that one at your guidance council offices this spring. That's all the announcements for now, and on with the program. First, I'd like to introduce Jen Kano. As I said, she is a leader in the Upper Cape Camera Club and a skilled photographer whose images are prized by buyers. Jen came to Cape Cod first as a young child with her family, and has been coming here ever since and moved year-round here as an adult. She received a camera at an early age from her parents, but she didn't start seriously getting into photography until an adult. Actually, in 2011, at the age of 58, is when she started to become serious about photography. She is a camera club competition judge with the Upper Cape Camera Club. And she likes to think of photography in 3 different areas: fine art photography, documenting photography, and photojournalism. Some aspects of this original recording, this original session, were not recorded. And so now we skip right to Jen talking about her experience judging the show, and then the interview with Anya. And so, Jen Kano, do you have any advice to the students or anyone in submitting photos to a photography show?
Sure. So I already talked about the importance of sticking to the theme. I'm going to reiterate that a little bit. When you are submitting something for a themed show, and not all of them are, some of them are just open, you could put in anything you want. But if it's got a theme, you've got to look at that theme very carefully. Really think about it, and then have it in mind when you're selecting images that you're going to submit. A lot of judges are very strict about sticking to the theme. others not so much, but you know, it's always your best bet is always to stick to the theme and pick photographs that illustrate that theme as well as you can. Next, look critically at the technical aspects of the photos you're considering entering. It may fit the theme really well, but if technical aspects of the image are weak, like it's not 100% focused, you know, things like that, then it's not gonna do what very well either. Either won't jury in, or it certainly won't be in the awards. So those aspects are important, and it's easy to overlook that stuff when you've got a picture that's just perfect theme-wise. But you have to think about the technical aspects as well. Bear in mind that photography is an art form, and all the principles of composition that apply to painting and other flat types of artwork apply to photographs. So if you don't know anything about that, time to study up a little bit and learn a little bit about composition so that you can produce a piece of art, because that's really what you're trying to do. One thing to bear in mind is that judges and jurors are just people with opinions. Art's very subject. And remember the old saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder? Well, beauty's in the eye of the judge when that's what their job is to do. And what one judge may dismiss as not worthy of much consideration, another one may absolutely love. So if you really believe in a photograph that you've entered and it doesn't do well, look at it critically, you know, put it away for a while, go back, look at it critically yourself, decide, you know, was it technically good? You know, is it well composed? Do I still really love it? And if the answer is yes, submit it to another show. Have another judge look at it. Don't give up just because one person didn't like it. And lastly, be persistent. There's a lot to learn, and putting your work out there and getting critiqued is part of the learning process, a very powerful part of the learning process. So submitting work for shows and competing I believe is very worthwhile. Take a class, you can study on your own. There's lots of excellent books and online courses in every aspect of photography, but it's a journey. It's a learning journey, and competing and putting work into shows can be part of that journey.
Great advice, Jen. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to introduce Anya Zolkos, and I'm going to remove the spotlight from Jen and put in the spotlight for Anya. So I first met Anya because she was a very talented potter here at Falmouth Art Center, a pottery student. And then she is now actually a pottery instructor here at Falmouth Art Center. She's a wonderful ceramics artist, and her pieces are very sought after by buyers. Then I found out subsequently about her very interesting background, where she grew up, her work at the Woodwell Climate Research Center. So that made her a great choice to be a judge for this contest, where she's both an artist and a climate science researcher. So welcome, Anya.
Hi, thank you. It's funny, my husband's, I realized that my husband's parents, when they talk about me, they say, oh, Anya, she's a potter at the art center, but she's also a scientist. So it's funny
Yes.
that a lot of people put that first.
You have the two hats. You have the two hats. So tell us a little about your background, where you grew up and so forth.
Yeah, I grew up in Russia, in the Russian far northeast region, and the region where I grew up is called Yakutia. And maybe you have heard of it because I think recently Yakutia became popular on media because of the coverage of its extreme cold temperatures. In fact, I'm from region that is called the the coldest inhabited place on Earth. So that's where I grew up. And I'm from the Arctic town called Zhigansk. It's a small town, about 3,000 people. It's very remote. It's on a big river called Lena River. And it's a majority of the population is indigenous. It's called Evenk. So my mom is Evenk and my dad is Russian, and people are very, because it's so remote, people are very tuned into nature, and there's a lot of hunting and fishing and just reliance on the natural resources. Yeah.
Very, very fascinating. And so tell us how you got interested in science and came to be here in Falmouth.
Yeah, so I guess the trajectory of my life was very different. You couldn't say that I would end up on Cape Cod, but at the age of 13, so first of all, my dad is a boat captain on a big river. So I grew up spending a lot of summers hanging out with him on a boat while I was off school. So one summer, a group of scientists chartered my dad's boat to collect water samples. And the scientists were a group from Woods Hole and some scientists from Russia. So that was my first encounter with foreigners. First of all, I've never seen Americans before, and my first encounter with scientists. So I was 13 years old and I was on my dad's boat and I met this group of scientists. And I was just really curious what they're doing. And I asked my dad if I can join for the cruise. And I did. It was a couple weeks long in a boat collecting water samples. And I was just observing what they were doing. And I didn't speak English at the time. So I would just, there was a translator in the boat, but mostly it was just the face expressions and hand gestures. I would start slowly to see their protocol, how they collect samples. I start helping out. And by the end of it, by the end of that cruise, I was asked, Max Holmes, who's the leader of the trip, asked me if I want to continue collecting samples while they live, because they live in Woods Hole and it's so far away and there's no way they can get there as often to collect water samples. But those samples can tell so much about climate change, about, you know, all this information that they wouldn't otherwise have. So I agreed and they left, and they didn't hear from me because I didn't have internet and I couldn't communicate really. But they came a year later and I had a collection of samples that I would go with my dad every 2 weeks through any weather on his snow machine, drill through ice and collect water samples. So when they came back the next summer, I had a lot of water samples prepared for them. And actually they came back here to Woods Hole with samples. And there was an article that I recently saw in Cape Cod Times about me. It was in 2003, I think. So that's how I got involved.
And that's how I actually first heard about that story from Max Holmes when he was giving a talk several years ago. And I knew you as being at the Art Center as a potter, and he told the story. And one thing he added that you left out was that when they were on that boat, chartering your father's boat, that you were watching what they were doing, and pretty soon you were correcting them. And that's when they knew that they really had someone who could help them with their climate science. So now, of course, now you're at Woodwell Climate Research Center. And what is your job there?
Yeah, so now I still work for Max Holmes. So I had connection to a research center since I was a teenager. And it's crazy to think about that story, that I'm still here. And so I still work with rivers. Actually, my dad still now collects river water samples in Russia, and he sends them here and we analyze them here. But we don't just focus on the Lena River, but we also focus on other big Arctic rivers, including Yukon and Mackenzie. And we also study rivers here on Cape. But here on Cape, of course, the concern is less of on the rivers, less of climate change, because there's such a huge impact of nitrogen and human waste pollution. So that's what we study here on Cape, but I'm so lucky. What I do is I collect and analyze water samples, freshwater samples, and my job brings me to amazing places. Like I go to Alaska, to Amazon River, and just seeing all these amazing places. I feel very lucky.
Well, we're lucky to have you here also. And this is just a little anecdote that Anya and I were talking about the other day, where there was a climate art show at her former school. And she had graduated already, but they did a sort of a climate art project. And then that was in conjunction with a talk that Max Holmes gave at the school. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually, good thing you brought it up, because I kind of forgot about it, but I think that art show really relates to this photography show, because so how it happened is that Max Holmes and other scientists went back to my village, and they went to school as a part of their visit. And a school director gave them a present, a bunch of artwork by students, middle school students, and that wasn't a part of any climate show or nature show. It was actually just a school art show, kind of just draw what you see. Maybe there was a theme of nature, but not much beyond that. But when people from Woods Hole saw these images, they were just amazed, because it was image, like very detailed picture of a reindeer or northern lights, and it's just because that's what kids see in the village. Here you could draw a good image of a dog, for example, so the same way people would draw an image of a reindeer. So when they saw these images, and sometimes because paper was not a was limit there was a limit of how much paper you have, so sometimes the pictures will be on both sides of the paper, and then you have to choose the artwork that you exhibit. So they brought all them here, and they didn't really know what to do with them. And as they started to showing it to people were just amazed. Wow, this is so amazing, all these images, where they come from. And because they tell a story about environment, about Arctic, and the Arctic is, of course, we know, changing so much because of the climate change. So then they put it in frames, and the art show was it was a highly praised year. And then eventually it ended up going to United Nations convention in New York. So there was an art show there, and it was 2008, and I turned 18 that year, and I was actually the first year I could travel abroad by myself, and that was the first time I came to US. So I went to New York to represent that art show, and then we flew to Alaska as well to show that in Alaska, and it was also well received.
Fascinating. And is that show still somewhere where people can see it, or is that sort of put away in boxes now?
It's put away in boxes, but I think we should research it, maybe
bring it out again,
exhibition at the art center.
Very good idea. So what struck you overall, and I asked Jen this question as well, what struck you overall, Anya, in looking through the 57 photos submitted for the show, Witnessing Climate Change?
Well, and that's where I draw a connection between that art show in my school and this photography show, right? Is because it's the same. It's what most you could tell that it was Cape Cod, it was coastal, because a lot of images were about sea level rise. It was about erosion on the beach, and of course that's the biggest concern here on Cape regarding climate change. So I guess that was the theme of the pictures, is just really concern of a changing habitat, of uncertainty of what the future for Cape is. And that's what I saw in these images mostly.
Okay, and I want to get your input one more time for the students on advice for the young people, or really anyone here on the Zoom call, and how they can get involved in dealing with climate change?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, well, most important for me, it was always to know facts and know information, to not be, convinced about anything else. And of course, do what makes you feel good. It makes you feel valuable. For example, if you feel good about going to demonstration and you're good at it, you should do it. If you feel good about writing to representative, writing letters demanding climate change action, you should do it. But if what makes you feel the best is just thinking about composting at home, about where your next pair of jeans comes from and what's the impact of that, I think that's also very important. I mean, any small steps are important, and use your talent, your own personality, and put it in the right place.
Very good advice for everyone. And now what I'm going to do is share the screen, and thank you, Anya, so much. I'm going to share the screen and we're going to go through the photos, and we'll pause at any of the photos that Jen and Anya want to talk about, but in particular, I will point out the ones that did get awards, and they can talk about those, about why they particularly liked those, and they are in the order actually of people submitting them, so they're not in any order in particular. So we will go through them. And so first I'm going to remove the spotlight from Anya, and then I'm going to share the screen. And now we have that, and I'll put that away. And so we had photos, actually 5 photos submitted by Dylan Bowen from Martha's Vineyard. Dylan won 2 first place prizes. Dylan's on the call, I believe. And so in terms of the photos that when all her photos were beautiful, and everyone's photos were very nice as well. This particular photo, I don't think was one of the actual winning photos. So I'm going to move through it, as nice as the photo is here. Let's see if we can. And this was another of her photos. Now this was one of the winning photos. And Jen, I think you might have picked this one. I don't know if you want to say anything about this photo in particular.
This is not the one that
I picked that photo.
Oh, okay. This is one that Anya picked. I'm sorry. Yes.
Well, I just, first of all, I found this picture very beautiful. And there were a lot of pictures in the theme of changing beach and changing your favorite places. And I think this one spoke to me because it's black and white, and it puts you in that sad mood. And there's a person looking ahead, looking in, far away. So it just, I felt like it represents that sad feeling for the place that is going to change as a result of climate change.
Yes, and that one's called Watcher. And this one is one that that I believe Jen chose.
Yep.
It is a very interesting photo. Jen?
Yeah, I did pick this one. And when I first looked at it, it was like, oh, this is kind of an interesting abstract. And I have an affinity for abstract. So I paused and spent some time with it. And then I realized before I read the caption that it looked like it was a person sitting in a chair underwater. And then I read the caption, discovered that that's exactly what it was. And so I thought this was a really creative way to illustrate that what could happen. We could all be underwater someday, especially living in a coastal community where we're not that far above sea level. And as sea level rises, this could happen. So I thought this was a really creative way to illustrate what might happen with climate change. And the image itself was strong just on its own as well.
And this certainly at the Art Center gets a lot of people looking at it for sure. And this is another one by Dylan. And now we have Sam Collins, a photo by Sam, Sienna Gerard, Catherine Litton, Morgan Chavez. We have Isabel Correa. This is Sophia Steele. This was a winner. This was one of the honorable mentions. Jen, this might have been one of your honorable mentions, looking up into these green trees.
Yeah. And this is a very beautiful image. It does have a little bit of an abstract quality, but it's very interesting. And as I read the caption, it was talking about seasonal changes come later and later in the year because of warming. And so I thought, okay, yeah, this shows the some aspect of climate change. So it kind of met the nature category, and it was a beautiful image as well. So that's why I chose it.
It definitely is. Here's Caitlin Gonzalez. We have Madison Kahn. This was another award winner. This is by Kate Charette, Bleak Bridge to Our Somber Future. And Jen, I know that you actually thought that this might have been better in a different category, but it ended up with the honorable mention in the nature category.
Yeah, I think, that was the.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Anya. Did Anya pick it as well?
Yeah, I
Okay.
picked it. I don't know if Jen picked it, but I think for me, the important part was caption as well. I like the picture, I like the movement in it and the aspect that's the water. But the caption, I just wanted to have a dialogue with that person about climate change, because they mentioned that the future is a foggy unknown, and I just immediately wanted to have a conversation about it and reply that yes, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty in the future. Like, for example, if we talk about climate change and predictions for future scenarios and how it will look like, what will the impact be on Earth, there's a lot of uncertainty about it, but it doesn't mean that we can't do anything, because our actions will directly impact of how bad the effect of climate change will be, because instead of having the worst impact, we could make it better. So that's the reason I chose this photo.
And it is a beautiful photo. And actually the
Yes.
one that I was talking about was a different one that we were talking about different categories. So we'll get to that one. Thank you, Anya, for that comment. This is by Una Carroll. This one also by Una Carroll. This one by Nate Drury, and this was an award winner. This one was a second place award.
Yeah, I think it looks like we both picked this one, and I picked it because I thought it was a good documentary shot of erosion, of what the destructiveness of water can be on the on the plants and whatnot. It's not an example of a great photograph in terms of like a fine art photograph. It doesn't really have the quality that you would need for something like that, but for this purpose, it really clearly illustrates the theme much better than most of the photographs that were submitted. So that's why I picked it.
Yeah, that's the same reason I picked it, because it's a clear illustration of erosion, but also the caption was nice, that the author said that the life persists and holds on, and it's amazing how that tree is still standing on and still has leaves on it. That's amazing, of the persistence of nature.
So that is certainly a dramatic example of erosion that he captured. This one is by Declan Lane. This one also by Declan Lane. Declan Lane, he's got 4 of them. Here's another one by Declan Lane. This one is by, and I apologize that the spelling, I'm the pronunciation, I'm not sure, but Ixanyu Tian. Dalen Peters. Dalen Peters again. Yaz Aubrey. Anne Jeffrey, and I think both Yaz and Anne are on this call. And this one did get an award. This one won the 3rd place award in the nature category.
Yes, and while this photograph doesn't really depict anything directly about climate change, it does focus our attention in on bees, and bees are such an important part of our ecosystem and our agricultural system. And they're so little that it's easy to just kind of overlook them and not think about them much. And so I felt that this photograph drew our attention to their existence. And because it was in this show, and the caption, I think, worked well with it, that it shows that, you know, the warmer temperatures could be a danger to the bees. And if we lost all our bees, it would be pretty catastrophic.
Yes, that's a beautiful photo too. Yaz Aubrey did this one. This is Daisy Hancock. This is Dylan Fondren. This one.
That last one was an award winner.
Okay, and
No.
so was it this one or this one was the award
No,
winner?
the last one. Well, both, but the last one.
They both were, I think.
Yeah.
So I'll go to this one first.
Yeah. So, yeah, this one, I think I looked at the photograph and I thought, wow, this is a really neat photograph, and it's shown from a fairly unusual perspective. I've never quite seen, you know, having the ferry top deck in the foreground like this for a sunset picture. But the caption is what made it relevant for me. And I'm just gonna read a little bit of what was written here. It says, "I was reminded of last year when there were wildfires in Canada, which also had made the sky amazing. It makes me think beauty does come with a price." I thought that was a great caption.
Very thoughtful caption on that one. And then Jen, was this one you were interested in as well?
Yeah, I think that, let me just see here.
Actually,
I don't see it. No, I don't see it on the list. No, the other thing, I love this. I love this image. This is a really, really gorgeous image. And this is a beautiful example of somebody looking deeply and seeing something that most people would just walk by and not even take notice of. So congratulations on a beautiful image, and put it in a fine art show at some point.
Very good. And okay, this one is by Junke Lin, and also Junke Lin, Asa Gamo, and Mia Galvam. Mia Galvam again. Naya Fury. And this won an award, Spencer Goldsmith.
Yeah, this is actually my favorite image in all of the submissions. And I looked at it and was like, yeah, it's not really about climate change, and the caption didn't help. But I liked it so much, and it spoke to me of all of the man-made problems that we have, including climate change. And that little figure so valiantly trying to deal with that tossed aside can, and you know, the way he's leaning into it, it just, for me, it spoke to the enormity of our man-made problems and how small and insignificant and helpless we can feel when we're trying to do that, but that the effort still needs to be made. And technically the use of selective focus on this, so you can see that the background is blurred out and the little figure is nice and sharp, and the object that is moving is mostly sharp. And I think that contributed to the success of the image visually as well.
Very good. And this is also Spencer Goldsmith, and this one actually also got kudos from both of you.
Jen, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I thought that, you know, this was the category, the individual and community category. And I thought it nicely, not only was the message right there in letters so that you can read it, but it also shows a whole group of people together working towards a single purpose. And having the tree above, having the nature standing above it and overlooking the whole thing, I just felt it told a really nice story, and it definitely fit the category beautifully.
Very good. And Anya?
Yeah, I agree. I had same thoughts, that the message was bold. I really like that you can't really see any faces. But there's a focus on community effort, getting together. Yeah.
Very good. And this is by Colleen Caswell. Here's Eva Reif, Chloe Champagne, Max April, Kylie Waggett. This is Ava Norris. Ella Ahern. This was one that received mention.
Yes, that was me. Yeah, so the caption indicated that it was a dead horseshoe crab, and that's not necessarily something I would have known simply by looking at it. So the caption really helped here, and showing that it explained that, you know, that the climate change could be causing all these dead horseshoe crabs. And the caption also explained that this wasn't the only one that that she was seeing. So anyway, I thought it fit the category, and it's also very nicely done because we can, you know, it's a clear picture of the horseshoe crab, and the surrounding ground about it doesn't compete with the main subject. So photographically, it works out quite well.
Very nice photo. This is by Hannah Birmingham. Hannah Birmingham. Ethan Delory. This one won. No, this one didn't, but he does have a couple of them that did win prizes, but I don't think this was one of them. No, we have his others are coming up. Now this one, I've been told by several people that those are actually rose hips, not red sprints, but this did have get an award. This is Ethan Delory, and this one was first place in the society category, I believe, with Anya, perhaps. No, yes, no. With Anya, no?
No, that was different image.
No, that was different. Oh, no, you have the other one. So was this one that, Jen, you didn't pick this one either. He's got several, so I think it's his others. There we go.
This is the one.
The Nopska Experience, that's the one.
Yeah, well, I picked this picture because honestly, I don't know what that plant is, but the caption said that it's a native plant, and there were several images that it was hard for me to choose, but I wanted to choose one from this from native plants, because it's so important to look into your background and know your native plants and know how they will be affected by climate change, because very often we think of climate change as big weather events, but there are these nuances of changing, shifting native plant communities. So those nuances, I think, depicted in this series of pictures. And yeah.
Yes, and then this next one is the one that Jen then picked, I believe.
No. wasn't
No,
me.
oh, this one also from Anya.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that was a funny, I was staring at this picture for a while, trying to find signs of climate change in it, and I didn't. So, and then I read the caption for this picture, which speaks for itself, and I'll read it out loud. This is a picture of Woods Harbor at around 5 o'clock in October of 2021. I chose this picture, this place, this time for no other reason than the peacefulness it holds. It's quiet and calm, but what is not being directly seen in the slowly rising water level. Behind the fence in the forefront, there's a wall in which the water almost fully covers its stone. This connects to the category because we as society don't always see the effects of climate change, but that doesn't mean the unseen rise isn't present within our community, our daily lives.
So it's
I
a
think-
very thoughtful caption for
Yeah.
sure. Very good. Thank you for reading that. Okay, and this one, I don't have a name on it, but I don't think that it is. Is that one?
Yeah, this was an honorable mention.
Yes, this one is the Emily. Is this the Emily Allen one? I'm not sure.
Yes, that's Emily Allen.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought
yes.
that it showed the because this is the one that when I looked at, I said, gee, this should be in the category that talks about infrastructure, not nature.
Yeah.
Because it does show, what can happen in terms of water damage to something, and it's a pretty, the photograph pretty much depicts the damage quite nicely, and it's a nice photograph as well. I think the way she chose to shoot it was a good artistic choice, as well as documenting the damage.
And this one is by Emily Allen. And so now this one is by Drea Perez, Ella Ostroff, Lily Zach. This was a first place winner.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that this one probably fit the category as but right there at the top. And because it depicts both the beauty of the pond and its natural, the way we see it, and then it also captured, you can actually see the algae at the edge of the water. And the caption talked about algae blooms and, because of the warming and everything. And so here's an example of where the photographer actually managed to illustrate exactly what's going on in this particular circumstance and get a beautiful photograph out of it, because the colors are just gorgeous. So I definitely picked this one.
Very good work on that one. And it is a beautiful photo. And I think this is our final photo by Casey McGowan of the mushroom. And I think that is the end. So I'm going to stop share and see if anyone has any questions for our two panelists. I'm going to spotlight the panelists. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. And I'm going to add the spotlight there. I see one question in the chat. Thank you, great presentations. So that was one message in the chat. And do we have any questions? I know we do have a number of students on the call. Do any of the students have any questions for the judges? I don't see, I know sometimes it's hard to think about questions at the right at the moment, and you might think of them later. And Bob Gould points out that he did choose the categories. We did combine, he had 4 categories. We combined the final 2 into that one last category. And he wonders what you thought of the categories. He's asking the judges what you thought of his categories that he thought up.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. It was definitely, I feel like, hard to fill. Some of the like societal categories had very few pictures. I think nature was the easy one to submit to, but yeah, they were all really good. Good job.
Yeah, I think they're, you know, they were great categories, but from a photographic point of view, hard, which I said before, difficult to actually capture and illustrate them when so much of it, of the effects of climate change are unseen. It's not immediately apparent and not photographable. So it was tough. I think it was tough, and I congratulate everyone who put photographs in, because I think you really had to stretch yourself in order to come up with entries.
The students did a great job, and it's true that the 2 final categories that we combined still had barely any entries to those. I think speaking to Jen's comment about it was just a very challenging category, but the nature one was one that people certainly seem to understand. And most of the submissions, if you come see the show, you'll see that most submissions were in the nature category. So that was certainly a good one. Any other questions? Questions from the teens? Well, we certainly appreciate everyone being here, and especially the teens participating. We do have a good portion of this recorded, so people can, people who weren't able to come, and I did get some messages as we were starting of people not able to join and wondering if we could record. And so we do have a recording of, at any rate, a good half of it. And so, but here's another comment saying, wonderful, thank you so much. So it's nice to get those positive comments. And not seeing any other comments, I would just say an enormous thank you to Anya and Jen for all their time and for this session, which was extremely interesting. And I appreciate everyone coming out tonight to the Zoom meeting, which means you get to sit in your house, but you're still coming out in a way. And we look forward to you coming to Falmouth Arts Center. Check out the show. There is news. We really did just finalize today that the show will move for 2 months to Falmouth Public Library, the Teen Room. So people can see the show in the Teen Room at Falmouth Public Library in the months of February and March. And the students can come get their photos after that. So we're so glad it's going to travel. That was an idea of Bob's as well. And so thank you all for coming. Appreciate everyone coming out tonight. And we'll see. I see Susan Moffat doing a little applause, the silent Zoom applause. Thank you, Susan, and thank you to Susan and to also Mrs. Baker at Falmouth High School for really putting a lot of effort in as well. So we appreciate that. I see some messages from the teens, Dylan Fondren saying thank you, Yaz Aubrey, thank you, Dylan Bowen saying thank you. So thank you to all the teens for participating in this. It was really fun to have so much participation from young people in our community. But I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to say good night to all. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to our judges, and take care. Have a good night. Stay safe in the snowstorm coming up. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.